On today's episode of You Asked, is Sonos actually making an Android TV set-top box? And do we even need or want that? Why don't TVs have faster Ethernet ports? And what do you do with consumer electronics that mean a lot to you but are basically just gathering dust right now? Welcome back, everyone. I'm Caleb Dennison, and this is You Asked, the show where I answer questions you asked in hopes that I can help you and others with similar tech questions. If you've got a question for me, please email it to youasked@digitaltrends.com, and we'll see if your question gets picked to be answered on the show. I gotta tell you, I am just in a great mood today. I'd like to have more of these, actually. Don't know what it is, but I hope you're having a wonderful Sunday as you watch this video, or whatever day you watch this video on. Got a slightly shorter episode for you this week, folks. We're getting quite a few projects over the finish line this week, and Chris is slammed. So I promised I'd take it easy on him with this episode. Y'all do me a favor and say thanks to Chris in the comments. He works hard on this show every single week and has pretty much all year. So show him some love, would you? Okay, first question comes from Dave, and I love this one because I can address a few things at once with this question. Anyway, Dave writes, with ISPs now providing optional 1 gigabit per second or 2 gigabit per second modem gateways, I'm somewhat disappointed that the TV manufacturers only incorporate the ancient 10-100 Ethernet adapters in their new TV sets. I get that, say, a consistent 50 megabit per second should be sufficient for watching streamed 4K programming, but do you feel that they, meaning like Sony, Samsung, LG, etc., are too cost conscious to opt for, say, a gigabit Ethernet adapter on their top tier of TV sets? I don't know how much of an advantage having a Cat8 Ethernet line to an integrated gigabit adapter would present, but I would imagine that it could be advantageous moving forward. Your thoughts? Okay, so you might be surprised to know that I actually get this question pretty frequently. Why don't TV brands get with the times and have higher bandwidth Ethernet ports? Well, first off, most brands don't make the board that has the inputs and outputs, including HDMI ports and that Ethernet port. That board also has the system on chip that runs the processing, and they don't make that chip either. It's called an SoC. Anyway, perhaps the most popular maker of that component, the SoC, is MediaTek. That's why when the MediaTek Pentonic SoCs came out earlier, many of us were hopeful that they would have 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs on them, because we knew that that would mean TVs from brands like Sony and others would therefore have 4 HDMI 2.1 inputs. It's less talked about because the need for a gigabit Ethernet jack on a TV is pretty low. I mean, the folks most likely to take advantage of such a thing are folks who are trying to stream 4K Blu-ray rips from their media server straight to their TV. And I mean, way to be awesome, guys, but there just ain't that many of you out there. Now, LG and Samsung, I believe, they make their own SoCs, and they could do this if they wanted to shift their manufacturing that direction. But I suspect that they're not doing it for the same reasons that MediaTek and others aren't doing it. There just aren't many use cases that could take advantage of it, and frankly, I imagine there are ramifications that go beyond just slapping a new wireless adapter in the mix. I'll see if I can find out more. Just remember, while it's convenient not to have to add a box, you can always add a streaming set-top box that can handle higher bandwidth and deliver the video signal via HDMI. It's not like you're slap out of luck if the TV doesn't have that high bandwidth port on it. But yeah, I get it. It sure would be nice, huh? Robert writes, loved your review video on the Golden Ear T66 and the way it got into the emotional places that audio equipment can take you. It was excellent and really resonant. It also led me to a related topic. Inevitably, you end up with equipment that you love that nevertheless loses its daily driver status. Great speakers, amps, headphones, quality stuff that you have a history with, but isn't quite what you need for your current media and listening habits. Do you keep any of it for down the road when you may want to hear a particular sound again or might have a space to put it to use? If you do, what are the things that distinguish a keepsake from old hardware? If you do hang on to old gear, do you ever actually bring it back to give it a spin, or does it just end up gathering dust? So, first off, Robert and everyone else who left such kind, thoughtful comments and some really amazing personal stories in the comment section of the Golden Ear T66 review. Thank you. It means the world to me. I mean, that review was tough, but also cathartic and special, and it was hard to put it out there. I kind of felt like I was opening myself up to some potentially nasty YouTube comments, but y'all are awesome, and man, it means so much to me. No kidding. Thank you guys, really. Now, I'm someone who would like to collect more gear than I can really afford to keep around. For example, I used to have a great Harman Kardon twin power receiver that I loved, but I ended up giving that to a friend who I wanted to have an awesome retro system, and I knew they would really enjoy it for what it was. Same story with some speakers I've owned over the years. They meant a lot to me, but ultimately I wanted for them to be enjoyed rather than just gathering dust. So I put my efforts into finding someone who would value them as much as I did. And that was rewarding in its own way. Now, there have been a couple of times I got rid of gear that I wish I hadn't. One particular time was when I was really financially struggling and I sold my Dynaco ST70 tube amp. But, well, you can see right behind me here that I reacquired one of those. Paid through the nose for it, but I got one back in the collection. I also have some other Dynaco gear here that I will never let go of. Now, it makes for great set pieces here, but I'm crazy in that I actually run a rotation of gear here. I get new stuff to review, but that stuff usually goes back to the brand that sent it. But I keep my personal stuff around because I like to use it from time to time. I like to change it up. Not everyone can do that. It just so happens that my job is awesome and circles around this stuff. Now, I do have my eye on a couple of other vintage pieces that I really want to have. I dream of having some Klipsch Cornwalls or La Scalas just because they're monumental and nothing quite sounds like them. But those are gonna have to be in a dedicated listening den or something, so I'll probably wait on that. I'm also lusting after a couple of vintage Marantz, Sansui, and Pioneer pieces from the late 60s and 70s. So one of these days, METZGER Vintage Audio or Resolution AV in Brooklyn is gonna get some of my money. Check those guys out on Instagram. I'll link to their pages down in the description. They have always just got the most amazing stuff to look at. But yeah, I gotta tell you, I think storage units are the biggest waste of money on the planet. And I think that way too much real estate is going into storage units. Think about it. With the money you spend on a storage unit in 2 or 3 years, you could probably afford to replace most of what's in the storage unit if you wanted to. So yeah, I'm not into storing things that gather dust unless they are heirlooms that I will never let go of. Otherwise, I want others to enjoy what I got to enjoy. And maybe those pieces will bring a special meaning to them before they hand them off to the next person. And may the cycle continue. J. Ash writes, and sorry if I butchered the pronunciation of your name, how useful do you think an Android TV set-top box / dongle is in 2024? With the rumor of Sonos potentially releasing an Android TV box, what features would you like to see in a high-end Android box? I personally would like to have a competitor to the NVIDIA Shield Pro, which is a fan favorite amongst enthusiasts, albeit I would like something that supports more modern codecs like AV1 and YouTube HDR, as well as something that runs a bit more smoothly. The amount of video and audio support that the Shield TV Pro has, such as supporting playback of a wide range of Dolby Vision profiles, is why enthusiasts still tend to favor it 5 years on. Okay, first off, I have to say, and this is a little bit embarrassing, I was unaware that the rumor that Sonos was making a set-top box was out there. I actually had to go and research that. But when I read your question, I just wrote down my thoughts, and here they are. Here's my initial impressions. First off, the idea of a rumor around a Sonos Android TV set-top box is so laughable right now. Sonos has plenty on its hand right now, just getting its core business back together. Also, I don't see any reason why Sonos would really want to get into that kind of hardware. I mean, it sounds like they're gonna, but it just seems to go against everything Sonos has always been about. Less hardware, more app. But with all that said, I will say that so long as there are enthusiasts out there with hyper-specific needs for certain codec support, super high-end audio codecs and video codecs. Hell, we just talked about being able to max out what you can get out of a media server, right? So long as enthusiasts exist and are ready to spend their dollars on something that feeds their hobby, well, there's enough need for someone to make that box or dongle. I don't think it's gonna be big business, but it is a business. And I think NVIDIA is in the best position to make a new box that folks want to buy, honestly. I think Apple could do it too, but what we know about Apple's support for high-res lossless audio and video is that they invest just where it serves their interests at a large scale. Honestly, I think NVIDIA is so powerful and so rich, they probably wouldn't even care if they lost a little bit of money on a niche hobbyist box. I really do wish NVIDIA would make an awesome update to the Shield Pro. Kind of feels like it's about time. I wish you would, NVIDIA. You hear me? Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Don't forget to email your questions to youasked@digitaltrends.com. Like and subscribe for more. I'll see you on the next one. And until then, here's 2 other videos I think you might like. Cat 8 Ethernet line